announcing the Dean Patrick Henry Drum and Bugle Corps. Take it away, Dino. Hello, I'm Dean Henry. The other day I heard Dave Sims and Mike Blowers on Root TV talk about starting new baseball traditions. These superb announcers call all the games for the Seattle Mariner baseball team. So I'd like to consider this an audition to become the Mariners' horn. Throughout the country, there are stadiums that have an organist, and they all seem to have their own mascot, and a lot of them have a recording of a charge call that they play occasionally. If they don't have a recording, sometimes the organ will do the charge call. Well, the organ is a bugle wannabe. And so Dave Sims said he'd like to start new baseball traditions, so I'd like to start a new baseball tradition. I'd like to tell you the history of this horn. From the looks of it, looks like an old English war horn, but to quote Paul Harvey, I'd like to tell you the rest of the story. Back in 1979 in Seattle, I used to get my hair cut down near the Kingdome. The fellow that cut my hair was a magician as well as giving outstanding razor cuts. His name was Thomas Forrest. And so I used to schedule my haircut at the end of the day, and we go in the back room and drink a six-pack of Rainier Talls, and he would demonstrate his sleight of hand magic tricks to me. Well, one day I was a little early for my haircut, so I started wandering around, and I discovered this gift shop right next door to his tonsorial parlor, as he calls it. And I was browsing through there, and I saw this bugle sitting on the shelf. $35, brand new, made in India. And I asked the shopkeeper, I said, "That thing work?" He says, No. He says, "It's an ornament. Women buy it and put it on their mantle." He said, "If it doesn't have those buttons on the top," he said, "there's no moving parts in it." And he goes, I said, "Well, that's not how a horn works." I said, "You got to buzz the lips like that." He goes, I said, "Yeah, that's the idea." He said, "Here, you do it." And I picked it up and I went. He said, "My God, do that again." He said, "My God, it's a musical instrument. You just tripled the price." Well, I liked it. And I liked the sound of it, nice mellow sound, so I bought it. As I say, it cost $35. I'm getting my hair cut, and Thomas says, "What's in the brown bag?" And I said, "A bugle." He says, "Was that you blowing charge calls next door?" I said, "Yep." He said, "When we get done with our six-pack," he said, "we're going to go over to the Kingdome." He said, "The Sonics are playing tonight." He said, "They're starting the playoffs." And as you recall, the Sonics won the whole schmear in 1979. They became the national champions. We went over there, and for $1.50 you could sit at the upper reaches of the Kingdome. And so we went up there and had another beer, and he said, "Play the horn." And I went, and 2,000 people said, "Charge!" He said, "Do it again." "Charge!" "Do it again." "Charge!" "Charge!" So I was amazed at the effect this horn had on these people. So I was going around looking for people that wanted to yell "charge," and I found that groups of people would yell, and they would be infectious. They would cause other people to yell. And I remember one time I came across this section of 13-year-old girls soccer team were there in mass. They would scream their lungs out, and I had all kinds of things I played for them. And big men with beards, especially red beards, they liked to scream "charge." So I was doing my thing, and we got done, and he said, "Hey, we got to go tomorrow night." So we went for about 3 nights. One day I got a call from this fellow by the name of Jim Casey. "Mr. Henry?" "Yeah." "My name's Jim Casey." He said, "I write human interest stories for the Everett Tribune." He says, "I'd like to come down and follow you around, write a story about that." And I said, "What's the big deal?" And he said, "Well, down on the main floor, they got the Weedle, and they got the Husky Band sometimes, cheerleaders and bongo drum." He said, "No one's ever entertained the die-hard, swizzling troops on the upper reach of the Kingdome." He said, "I think there's a story in that, and I'd like to come down and follow you around." I said, "Okay." So he came down, and we were doing our thing. At halftime, we went down, got a couple hot dogs, and we were going back to the stand to where we sat, and this usher came up and grabbed me by the horn, by the arm, and he said, got on his walkie-talkie, he says, "I got the guy with the horn. What do you want me to do?" So, "Okay, so I'm going to have to confiscate that horn." I said, "What?" He said, "I now got to confiscate that horn." He said, "Paragraph number 26, the lease with the Kingdome and the Sonics, no air horns allowed at the Kingdome." And the guy said, "Hey, I'm writing a story on this guy." He says, "Well, you can't put a lid on the horn." He says, "Yep, can't let him blow it." He said, "Why? Have you had any complaints?" He said, "No." He said, "But I got to the point where too many little old ladies' tender eardrums got blown out by these guys with these compressed air horns like they have on boats." And he said, "So we just did away with all air horns. I let you blow that. I got to let other people blow that. So you can't blow that horn anymore. I got to take that horn." I said, "No, you can't have my horn." I said, "I'll leave before I take my horn. If I can't blow it, I promise I won't blow it." He said, "Okay, if you don't blow it, you can keep it." I said, "Fine." He said, "But if you blow that, I'm going to come get you." I said, "No problem." So we went and we sat down, and this big burly guy behind me said, "I want a charge call. Give me a charge call." "No, can't do that." "What do you mean you can't do that?" "Well, I got the, why, we're going to get a petition." And the guy's writing the story and everything. The next day I called the Sonics, and I told them what I was doing. They said, "Yeah, what happened to the second half? We enjoyed what you're doing. Why'd you quit?" I said, "You got this silly ordinance, no air horns allowed at the Kingdome." "Oh, we'll look into that." So they called me the next day, "Mr. Henry, we're sorry, we got this stupid ordinance." He says, "Maybe someday we might give you a special permission to come blow your horn." And I said, "No, if I just can't come down and have a beer and play when I feel like it, the heck with it. It takes all the fun out of it." About a year later, maybe 2 years later, I was listening to Mariner Baseball on the radio. And Renee Latchman was the manager at the time, and they were interviewing him after the game. And he says, "You know what irks me?" He said, "We got one of the hottest streaks going in the American League." And he said, "When the score's tied at the bottom of the ninth inning, people are getting up and leaving their seats going home because they want to beat the traffic." He said, "That really bugs me when they do that." So I wrote him a letter. "Dear Latch, maybe I can keep a few more fans in the seats when the score's tied at the bottom of the ninth." Well, he wrote me back the nicest card. He said, "Dear Dean, I passed your letter on up to George Arduous," and George Arduous owned the Mariners at the time. About 3 days later, I get this phone call from this guy by the name of Bill King. "Mr. Henry, this is Bill King in charge of promotions for the Mariners. What are you doing Thursday night?" And I said, "Well, what'd you have in mind?" He said, "Well, the Detroit Tigers are in town, and the suits are going to be here, and we'd like to come down and blow your horn." And I said, "Well, I'll do it on one condition. You put out a memo to all the ushers, do not take Dean's horn away." He said, "Yeah, we heard about that with the Sonics. You don't have to worry about that. You can come down and blow your brains out, and no one will bother you." So I went down there. They picked up my parking, and they gave me a jersey and a Mariner jacket and a Bill Caudle inspector hat to wear. And I went out and I did my thing. After the game, Bill came up and said, "Hey, that was great. What are you doing tomorrow night?" I said, "Well, it's a 4-game series. Why don't you come down and blow your horn tomorrow night?" And as a matter of fact, anytime you want to come down and blow your horn, call ahead. We'll have 4 free box seats waiting for you and your family. Just ask him to call. We'll call Dean Henry. And he said, you come down and play anytime you want. So for the next 42 games, I went down and blew charge calls for the Mariners. I had a ball. They seemed to like it. And the fellow that wrote the story on me when I was playing with the Sonics wrote a very, very nice full-page story about how I was pumping up the fans and how much fun it was. And I appreciate that. I've been watching the Mariner games, and I was thinking to myself, you know, I've been playing at baseball, football, basketball, soccer, hockey games, but I really, really enjoy playing for the Mariner baseball games most of all. Watching baseball is a very soothing thing. I didn't like playing for hockey and soccer because those people are screaming all the time. Now you're on offense, now you're on defense, now you're on offense. They didn't need me to charge up the crowd. So I can remember when my son was playing Little League soccer, I used to blow charge calls for his Little League. And I remember one day at halftime, this mother came across the field from the other side, and she said, Mr. Bugle player, would you come over to our side now and blow charge calls for us? And I said, well, I better check with the team here. What do you think? And my son said, well, let me think about that. Okay, I thought about it. No. So she went back to the other side of the field, and she told the kids they weren't going to do, and they all, oh, darn. Anyway, the Mariners, they have the King's Court, and I've been watching them develop. And as far as I'm concerned, the King's Court's God's gift to a bugler. Because I remember looking around for people who wanted to yell. Well, the King's Court was made for the horn. And now they've got their KKKKK thing going. Well, I thought about other things than just charge. For instance, I used to love it when Mike Blowers would say, struck him out. Well, struck him out. You got to say it with attitude. Struck him out. One time I was playing my horn, and some guy said, hey, can you play anything else besides that? And I said, yeah, I can play a lot of things on this horn. He said, well, play something else. And I went, and the crowd said, hunting we will go. I didn't tell them to say that. They just said that. Conditioned, like Pavlov's dog. And at that time I realized that the bugle does 2 things. It tells you what to say and when to say it. So I thought, maybe I can teach the people to say other things. And this is what I call buglese. And I'd like to start the Dean Patrick Henry Buglese Club. Because baseball has so many different plays that you can make a call for. Like the strikeout call. Struck him out. And then, hunting we will go. Well, that's a double play. Pick him off the base. A home run, for instance. Fly away. Goodbye, baseball. My, oh, my. Well, that's what I call Dave Niehaus' home run. But this is a Mike Blowers home run. Giddy up, baby. Goodbye. I love it when Mike Blowers says that. When I went to my first baseball game, the Seattle Rainiers, back in about 1945, I was probably about 5 years old. I'm sitting there on the bench with my dad and his law partners. They're talking politics, but they're also talking baseball, and I'm picking up my first baseball jargon. I remember Dad saying, oh, we got to get a rally going. We got to get a rally going. I came home, and Mom said, well, Dean, how did you enjoy your baseball game? And I said, it was great, Mom. I got to boo at the umpire. Mom says, Ed, are you teaching our son bad manners? No, Gail, he says, booing the umpire is part of the game. He says, you know, they make an unpopular call, you got to let them know it. Maybe they'll go easier on you next time. So here's my boo call, and I call it my Woody Woodpecker flutter tongue call. And if you never heard 2,000 people go brrrr, you haven't lived. Can you imagine the King's Court going brrrr like that? Maybe Zunino throws him out at second base. Got him! I used to have a call when the Sonics were playing. Some player would be grimacing on the floor, you know, with a sprained ankle or something like that. Call 911! There was a Mickey Mouse call. Mickey Mouse call. As you can see, it's endless is what you can do with a horn. I'm in the last quarter of my life now. I became recently widowed. I'm going to move back to Seattle, and I want to start this new tradition. Maya Angelou, the great poetress, philosopher who recently died, said, "Do not die until you've done something wonderful for humanity." And so I'd like to do something wonderful for humanity with this horn. Thank you.